So I had this funny idea that it's been making me laugh thinking about this. So you know David Goggins?
Yeah.
I thought it would be really funny if like it came out like one of his ex leaked that he was like a total bitch in bed. Like, you know how he's all about like, be a man, step up.
Like a 2-pump jump.
Yeah, stay hard. And like, meanwhile, he could not
Just
stay
flaccid,
hard.
yeah.
He just like either he couldn't go for long, or he was like had terrible technique, or he liked to be dominated. Because
okay.
a lot of these alpha male types, especially in like the business world, you hear these stories about like they'll have people come and like step on their balls and like take a dump on their chest. And it's like, what if Goggins was like that? But we all know he's probably like alpha male in there, and like, you never know.
You never know.
You never know. So I like to start. Oh yeah, welcome everybody. I'm back here with Zach, who is episode 2. I think I had you on for. It was
I think that's right.
2
One
or
of your first ones. Yeah.
2 or 3. Yeah, when I was a baby trying to get all this shit figured out. Let me. And our incense went out. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Can't do this without good smells. Okay, but yeah, before we pushed record, we were talking a little bit about these latest developments at my job. And I want to share the story. I shared the story on a different podcast, but it was the craziest. It was like, I very rarely feel like the universe is pointing clearly in a direction. And that's actually kind of what it was like. I was tasked, like I got brought in, I was there for like 18 months, and my boss kept challenging me. He would give me like little projects along the way, and I would do them, but I never found myself like super busy or stressed out or like doing anything that I felt like was adding much value. Well, then I'm like kind of trying to rack my brain and take some of the ideas that he had for me and make it into something. And then I'm on our main kind of database full of all the information that we need. It's in so it's for Ford, but it's like the prototype. So before it goes to the assembly line and after all the engineers do all their designs, in our facilities we are kind of piecing together these vehicles for the first time. And we have this big database called LQOS, LQOS, and it's like, I don't know, it's very like, it's almost like legal jargon. Like you would go in there and read it and nobody really understands what's in there. But in all these like different trainings they have on there, there's a space that says podcast, training podcast. And all of them, there's like 20 of them. They're all blank. It's like someone had the idea before, but nobody ever did it. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, I have all this shit for a podcast. And like, I go to these meetings every day and I come out of them. And even after 18 months, I'm still like scratching my head. Like, I barely know what the hell they were talking about. It's such a complex world. And I'm, I'm much further away from where I thought I would be in terms of like a knowledge standpoint and like what we actually do to build a prototype. So I'm like, if I'm coming out of these meetings and I'm scratching my head and I have all these like entry level foundational questions that like never get answered, like I'll go into a meeting and it'll be about part shortages, like 3 different teams talking about like, oh, well, what do we got to do to get this cable from a supplier, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, what is a part shortage? How often do they occur? Like I have all these like just basic questions that anyone walking in day 1, week 1 would ask. And I pitched it to my boss. I'm like, hey, I think we could benefit from like my lack of knowledge. And I could go in and ask these like super simple questions, record it, store it in a database so that anyone coming in new, because we're coming up on like a ton of turnover. Like I work with people who have been there 40, 50 years and we just aren't getting like new people. And I think one thing that would hold a new person back is just like, what the fuck is going on? So keep a database of podcasts so people can go in, listen, like while they're doing their job, whatever, just soak in a bunch of knowledge. And he loved it. He fucking loved it so much that he was like, what do you need? I'm like, well, I need 4 mics. I need a audio interface. I need the cables. I need this, that. Literally had me send him the Amazon links. He ordered them. And by the next day, I had like $5,000 of equipment ready to go. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, that was fast. I got to put my money where my mouth is. Like, I got to make this actually work. So then they ordered me like a new laptop. I had this like brand new MacBook Pro 16 with an M4 chip, which is just like top of the line shit. Like this thing, you could edit a Hollywood movie on it. And yeah, it was really crazy how it all came together. Now, as of this recording, in 2 days, I have my first one that it's like, oh, okay, now I got to actually ask the right questions and dial in the audio and record the video. Like I got to do it all. And like, yeah, it's really cool. But thank you. You told me congratulations. And that was my long-winded way of saying thank you.
That was really smart of you to turn something you didn't, because most people think the opportunity is in what you know, and you reverse that. You that's like really, really smart. And also I was wondering, are you doing the same? Is it like the same guest each time? Is it like an aficionado telling you? Or can you switch that up, or maybe you don't know yet?
Good question. So my idea now is to get all different people.
Okay.
So on Monday, the people I have coming in, they are experts in what's called a PCN. And it's something you hear every day at work, but very few people stop to ask, well, what is that? How often does a PCN come up? Like, who writes the PCN? Like all these fundamental questions. It's just like super complex process, and I'm getting 2 experts to come in and to ask those very foundational level questions. And there's so many things like that people talk about it all willy-nilly because they've been doing it for years and years and years, but it's hard to stop in the middle of a meeting and be like, what is that?
Right,
who is involved in that? So and then Tuesday, this is where my boss kind of came in and helped me out. He's getting all of like the executives to come in and do a podcast with me and answer questions, and top level people.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening. I'm going to turn your mic up a little bit here. Let's get you squared up. Okay. So yeah, and then I've been workshopping names. I think I'm going to go with the Autopilot podcast because it's auto, so like cars, and then like we work at the pilot plant.
Yeah.
And ideally, like people could listen to the podcast while they're kind of in autopilot, doing other stuff, soaking up knowledge. So
I like that.
Little Jay-Z triple entendre.
Yeah,
there
it's like a pilot episode. It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's very layered.
Yeah, I think it works. I had AI design me a little logo. Here, let me see if I can pull it up while we're chatting here. But yeah, I'm really, really excited, and I'll try not to bring it up too much on this podcast because I don't know, people get sick of hearing me talk about it. But AI did that as like a little cartoon.
Okay. You should put that on the screen, like something.
Yeah, I'll try to project it. Here's for the camera, but I'll overlay it. Yeah, it's like a little. It's almost like Family Guy style animation.
Yeah.
There's a Ford F-150 in the background, and it's me with a pilot outfit on, just like waving. And it says Autopilot Podcast. But yeah, pretty cool.
That's really cool, man.
I'm super excited for it. It's like I got my degree in TV, radio, and cinema 18 years ago. No, 15 years ago. And it's like since then I've been trying to find something just like this.
Yeah.
And I've applied and interviewed and gotten rejected more times than I can count on like a job in media. And it feels like knock on wood, it's finally coming together.
Yeah. Dude, it's funny because I feel like those kinds of things, often if you're in doing anything creatively, like very rarely, like out of college, do you just go creative job and Indeed, and then that's like it's usually like a very unique path, you know. But I think that ultimately that makes the content you make more interesting because it's not as like cookie cutter. Like one of my friends did an MFA in creative writing. And he said, I asked him if he thought I should do a program like that. And he said, honestly, like a lot of the more interesting stories come from people who go into like maybe auto industry or whatever. And then they write about that experience or they study psychology. and then that ends up influencing the writing instead of like going to through a program that tells them like, here's how you tell a story. You know, it makes you more unique.
Yeah.
It makes your path more individualized.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. At film school, like, I'm
sure in film school too.
Definitely got a lot of value out of it, but also there's so many rules that if you know them, you're not inclined to break them.
Right.
Like with just filming a sketch or a TV show, a movie. Like there's one thing I remember I couldn't get it out of my head. It's like the 180-degree rule. Like if you're shooting a shot, say we were facing each other, the camera, they had this like ironclad rule. You couldn't break it. The 180-degree rule, you'd have to shoot from one angle and never switch to a different angle because then the people would be reversed and it would like confuse the audience. But if you're never willing to break that rule, then like what if that's the effect you're going for? What if it's like a dream sequence and you want to like flip people around and make it kind of wacky? And so I think
make it stand out.
Exactly. Learning the rules is one thing, but knowing when to break them or push past them is another thing.
And somebody broke a rule to make that rule.
Right.
That's, I mean,
that's
like by default, I almost feel like that's like what art, any sort of art is.
Mm-hmm.
You're breaking a rule somewhere.
Yeah.
You're exploring something somehow in a different way.
Yeah.
And the more you try to make it like something else, it's just less likely to stand out or to captivate people. Because people will notice that even if they don't have any background in storytelling or podcasting or film, something like subconsciously tells them it's different. And then that, like, if you hit the right stride, that it'll lock them in, as opposed to like turning them off or confusing them, or maybe it'll be like a good kind of confusion where it intrigues them, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I'm super excited for you. I'm really interested to see where you go with that.
Yeah, me too. I think it's just going to be like available for people to listen to internally at the company. It's going to be stored on a SharePoint where people need access and like a forward username, whatever. But, you know, I would like to try to get it somewhere more public so people could listen to it and check it out if you have any interest in building prototypes. And my grand idea is that we're going to do prototype vehicles, but then we're going to branch out so we can learn like, okay, what happens before it comes to us? What happens after it comes to us? Maybe even all the way to like dealership and service and sales and stuff like that. I think there's really no limit, and then, you know, see where it goes from there. But,
yeah.
And I told my boss,
road.
Yeah, exactly. I told my boss, I'm like, it'll be worth the investment. Say we do this, say I do this, nobody listens. Well, then the worst possible scenario is I come out of it with education, and then you can put me wherever you want to go because I've learned so much, you know, by doing
That's
these.
true.
So, you know, kind of made him be like, well, it's worth a shot, you know, there's no reason why we can't at least try it for a while. And so, yeah, then they booked me in our building. They booked me like a conference room, like for the next 2 months just to do the podcast. So I got all my mics set up and stuff, and I'll throw a picture of it up on the screen as well. But it's a pretty, I mean, it's a minimalist setup, but it's like, I mean, it kind of looks like it does in here. And I figure like the
Very professional.
Yeah. The whiteboard will be there for if we need to draw up any diagrams or give visual examples. But it's pretty cool. But your job, you said you are occupational therapy and physical therapy as a tech, and you just kind of fell into that. We were talking a little bit about that. So you said, how did you get into that again?
It was about 6 months after I got sober.
Yeah.
And I was looking for work, any sort of work to be a functioning member of society again. And my next door neighbor, who I've known she was my basketball coach when I was a kid, and just I've known her forever. I told her I was looking for work, and she told me there's a tech position open. Usually in the summer times it opens up. And so I just was like, hey, that sounds better than the other options I'm looking at. And I applied, and without any background in any sort of like kinesiology or exercise science. And that from there on, I just ended up really loving working. Really, I think it's more the psych component. I love working with people in that demographic. And what's really interesting too is, as you're working people through like physical therapy or athletic training or anything along those lines, a part of them kind of comes out where they can talk about their experiences as maybe they're paralyzed, that they have a harder time accessing, I think, when like if you just sat them down in a chair and were like, tell me what's going on. But if you got them doing a workout while they're talking, it like it's both physical therapy and almost like talk therapy at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like when you work out with a friend and like you have aha moments more often, I think, than the standard like sit on this couch and tell me your problems kind of a thing. They go together, movement and psych stuff. So that's probably my favorite part of the job is getting to know people in that demographic. And then they also, a lot of them have just the most incredible perspective on life and their capacity to be grateful for things that not only I take for granted, but I wasn't even aware that I was taking these things for granted, like walking, for example.
Right.
I just kind of assume like I'm just given that, and that's like my right to walk, you know. You can take that perspective, but it's like, I guess it's what you're willing to consider. Like, are you willing to be grateful for something like that? Not just the big things or the things that maybe you want. So it's a great job. And it's been my favorite place to work for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me of that study that they did where they interviewed people who were recently paralyzed and they interviewed people who had recently won the lottery and, you know, gathered all up sorts of bunch of data. I don't know the specifics, but then they followed up with them a year later and they found that the people who had been paralyzed were like exponentially happier
That's crazy.
and more grateful than the people. Because I mean, it makes sense. It's like when you have it like that, it's mind blowing. But then when you really think about it, it's like the people who had been paralyzed have, you know, often overcome tremendous adversity. Whereas the people who won the lottery most likely have probably just been given everything they've wanted, gotten everything they've wanted for a year plus. And that just, it's such a good reminder for me whenever I can think of that story, because I always assume that if I just get what I wanted, I would be happier. I would be a more grateful person, whatever. But very rarely is that the case. Like, I have talked about on this podcast a bunch where like we went through a really, really rough time the past 6 or 7 months with the kid and the co-parenting and all this stuff. Well, now that I'm coming out of it, it's like, oh yeah, like those tough times are necessary. It's like the whole rain versus sunshine thing. Like you need those times to, gather perspective and see the world through a more clearer lens, I would say.
Yeah. You need contrast.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a yin yang kind of thing,
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I've never heard that study before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised, but like that's still like really crazy.
Right. Right. I never found this, but when I lived in California for 2.5 years, everyone said like the weather's perfect, but without having the shitty snow and the rain,
yeah, I've heard this.
you don't take it. You take it for granted. You don't walk out every single day and think, 78 and sunny again.
Right.
Yes. And I found like I heard that before I moved out there, so I tried to like make it a point to always be like, this is a beautiful day, enjoy it, because it's not always going to be like this. And then you'd get like your 1 week of rain or 1 week of like cold weather there. And then it'd be like right back to, okay, 78 and sunny. Here we go again.
Over time, it's just like you kind of fall into. I had a friend of mine was a professor at the college I went to, and she actually was from here, so that's like how we connected. And she got her doctorate at Wayne State. And
where did you go to college again?
University of Missouri.
Missouri, that's right. I knew it was something like that.
And she told me she went to. She lived in San Diego. She worked. I think it was the University of California, San Diego. That's what it was. And she told me the same thing, because I was telling her like at that time I was like, 'cause all my friends were either going to San Diego area or Colorado, and at that point in time I really wanted to go to San Diego, and she told me she lived there and that she had that exact same experience where she not only she missed the snow. It wasn't even that the snow or the shitty weather helped her enjoy the nice weather more. She actually missed the shitty weather. Like she wanted the shitty weather. And so I've heard that too. It is interesting how that works. And then also a lot of times I think people out on the west side of the country or anywhere where it's nice, you have all this stuff you can go and do outside, but you don't do it because it's always there. Where here, it's like when it's summertime, we're like, get to the fucking lake, go, it's time, get as much as you can, because you know. So you go out and you do more, and of course you could manage to go out every day or every weekend if you're out west, but there's an urgency that's not there.
Yeah, urgency. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like we only have 4 months to go get ice cream.
You gotta do it now.
6 tops, and it's like, or else they're closed. Like you can't go to Dairy King in downtown Plymouth. Their dairy go around 6 months out of the year. They're closed.
Right.
Straight up. It's an interesting point. Like urgency. Yeah, that's good.
I have to pee real quick.
Yeah, go
Okay.
pee. I'm gonna. Zach's back. I'm gonna definitely cut that bit. Okay. No good. But we had talked before you came here about pet peeves.
Yeah.
I just think they're funny to say. I came up with this one yesterday. This is a big one, especially post-COVID. Hand sanitizer.
Okay.
In general, for a couple of reasons. Reason number one is they're always empty. Anytime, especially if it's the one just plastered to the wall. There, or it's the press one, and nothing but air's coming out, and you try to give it like a more forceful, and it's still just air. Maybe you get some foam, like the tiniest bit of foam.
And what do you do with that now? You have like 2 bubbles in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. Yeah. And I just feel like hand sanitizer in general, like since COVID, it's just become a thing we do, like chewing gum or chewing on a toothpick. It's just a thing you do like while you wait, like, oh, okay, I'm getting a haircut. All right, yeah, let me get a little bit of this. And okay, so, but if it's not empty, it's the giant jug that looks like motor oil, and you got to press down on the, and it just cakes your whole hand. And then you do it, and it's like, okay, slimy, but it eventually rubs in. And then you smell your hand, it's like, oh, that was just fucking cheap tequila.
Right.
Rubbed all over myself. Now I'm going to an AA meeting reeking like tequila out of my pores. That happened to me at Salvation Army like a few weeks ago. Yeah. I'm like, I swear to God, guys, I did not relapse.
Aren't there like debates over whether or not hand sanitizer is at, because I don't really see it now, but like back in the day, I remember like half of the meetings were like hand sanitizer, and then the other half was like no, because it smelled like shitty tequila.
Yeah, and
I'm derailing what you were saying.
No, that's perfect. It's a good segue. Yeah, I always, and all due respect to the people that can't even like walk down a booze aisle because it'll trigger something, like, or if the smell of hand sanitizer will set something off, like I empathize, but isn't that kind of what the 12 steps are about? Like you work the 12 steps, and it says right there in the book somewhere, they're like, we're good to go. Like we are free to walk amongst regular people. Like otherwise we would need to like, be shut away in the Arctic somewhere. Yeah. And even then some Eskimo will come up with, a hot toddy and be like, cheers. But yeah, I've always kind of erred on the side, like people who won't touch certain medicines like a NyQuil. I don't know. I'm always like, I'm good. I'm not going to go out on some NyQuil. Like if I feel like shit and I need to get a good night's rest, I'm going to take the recommended, dose of NyQuil. I have this, actually, I wasn't even planning on talking about this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this though.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about therapy, and I am seeing a therapist again, and they're great. But one thing they do is they do psilocybin therapy and ketamine therapy. I don't know how much you know about these, but psilocybin therapy is basically like you go into the office, they give you a certain amount of like mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, and you're there for like 6, 7, 8 hours, and you do therapy through it, and it's supposed to be unbelievably helpful. Like any blocks or PTSDs or anything you got under the hood that you need to like work through, it's been shown to be like super beneficial for that. And people have used psychedelic therapy to like overcome addictions. Like there are certain therapies, like one is Ibogaine. Ibogaine is huge. It's not available in the States. Mexico and Canada is where you'd have to go. But people who come back from being deployed, military, with severe PTSD and addictions, like they do this Ibogaine therapy, and it's like one session has like an 80% success rate. 2 sessions is like a 95% success rate. Like they come out of it and any demons they have are totally put to bed, and they just aren't addicted anymore. And so I was talking with my therapist, and then, come to find out they do this. And I actually had a session booked for tomorrow.
Okay.
I was going to do it. I was going to go, under, medical supervision and do it and work through some stuff. Then my wife had like a knee issue. We had booked an MRI, so I had to cancel. But now that I've canceled it and rescheduling it, now I feel like I've kind of worked through a lot of the issues on my own with therapy, with, whatever. But have you ever been intrigued by, or do you have any strong opinions on a person in recovery doing like a psychedelic for mental, emotional therapy?
Well, I have an interesting story on psilocybin.
Let me get the mic a little bit. There you go. Perfect.
So, do I have a strong opinion, and as far as it pertains to someone in recovery, to work through mental health stuff?
Correct.
So, I have not done a lot of psilocybin. I have done it before while I was drinking. Let me start with this story, and then I'll answer your question. So, this was like at the end of my drinking, and I was suicidal. Bad things were happening. And I took psilocybin. I think I drank and took an edible at that same night. So multiple things were going on.
Okay, so it wasn't you took psilocybin during your drinking days. This was while being intoxicated.
Yes.
Okay.
But still, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
I was, because at that point I'm just drinking. It wasn't like, oh, you know what? I'm going to mix my alcohol with I'm always drinking alcohol. So it was kind of like I'm just doing psilocybin, That's a good what I mean? And so prior to that, I was in a very low place, and I had kind of heard about this medicinal aspect of psilocybin. So I was like, I'm going to write some stuff down in my notes on my phone, and I'll visit this, So that's when I'm take them. So that's what I did. And it's funny because I had thoughts. I had so many conversations with different people, therapists, family members, other people who were in the program who were like, hey, this program might be for you, like about quitting alcohol. And like, I kind of knew the words of I should quit alcohol. Like I knew that was like a sentence and that it meant something. But I had written down in my notes, what do I need to do to want to be alive? That was one of the questions.
While you were going through a trip or leading up to it?
Leading up to it.
Okay.
And that was really, honestly, that was the only question I really got to.
Okay.
Because
what do I have to do to want to be alive?
Yeah.
That's fucking powerful.
And so it's kind of a miracle that I remembered that I even wrote anything down, to be honest with you. But I did. And maybe that's where a guide would be useful, because you could easily, in my experience, end up in like another thought process, and you're just there. And that's part of it. You can have a bad time if you don't accept that that's how it goes. That it's just going to show you something. So anyway, during that time, and when I saw that question, I made the emotional connection between, well, first of all, it just kind of appeared in my head that I needed to get sober. And I don't tell this story a lot because I know there's a lot of controversy around.
No controversy here, brother.
Okay. Bill Wilson did
Yep.
LSD and all that stuff, which is kind of a really contentious issue. You don't bring it up in meetings usually.
Right.
All that stuff. Anyway.
He did. So Bill Wilson, just to give anyone background, Bill Wilson is like the co-founder of
AA.
Yeah. And it was years into his sobriety where he began experimenting with different
in a scientific study.
Yes.
Like he was being supervised, and it wasn't just like him, partying.
Right.
He was looking to see if it was a possible aid in a higher power and all that stuff. Anyway, so yeah, I kind of made that connection during that experience. It was like an aha moment, and it's really difficult to describe because this was years ago now. This was like over 8 years ago. But I felt instead of thought that I could want to be alive if I quit drinking and taking drugs. Mm-hmm. And it really stuck with me. Now, it wasn't like the next day there I was, I'm not going to drink it. I drank the next day. Mm-hmm. But that was a month before I went to AA.
Okay. So
it did something to my mind. It shifted something. Like permanently might not be the right word, but in a lasting way. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just like, there was residual emotional, residual feelings following. And I could not shake that connection that had finally been made after years of like, I should get sober. Mm-hmm. Those words didn't mean anything to me. So it's not why I got sober, but it did do something in how I looked at what that meant.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And it's rare that someone shares a psychedelic experience like this and not being in that state, it still connects. Like that question, I know you weren't on the psychedelics when you wrote the question, but it's like more than just the words. Like words are just like mouth sounds, and oftentimes they're just like signposts that point to like a greater truth. Mm-hmm. And that question, what do I have to do to want to be alive? It's like more than just the sounds that it makes. It like hit something in me that's like, well, that's big. That's a big question. And the fact that you went on this journey and without the supervision and just got there on your own.
It could have been luck.
Yeah, they got there on your own. That's pretty cool. So
it took like cool each word in that sentence though. It defined it by each, instead of like, here's the sentence and here's what the sentence means. It was like, what do you have to, all the way down. It like, it's really, and that's the other thing about those, I think psychedelics is it's ineffable. Mm-hmm. And it's like I think it's really, really hard to thoroughly and accurately describe what happens. I mean, maybe some people like, Terrence McKenna is.
Yeah.
That guy has a lot of experience, so he probably could talk more specifically to like what, and this was years ago too. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing about it. So I don't have the perspective of like, that doesn't belong in AA. Also, I had found a group around that time I never joined called Psychedelics in Recovery. And it's the meetings are virtual because it's not a very big group, but it's people who use the psychedelics to tap into the higher power component of their program, basically. Mm-hmm. So there are people who do AA and use psychedelics. And I don't think it's helpful to be like, no, there's no place for that. Right. That may be person to person. Maybe for some, like I know that if you have schizophrenia in your family line, or bipolar type 1 in your family line, you probably shouldn't do psychedelics because it can bring those things to the forefront. So medical supervision is probably the best way to go. Yeah. But I think being open to it is important, even if you don't, maybe even especially if you don't do it. And at the time when Bill Wilson was doing LSD, it's not like he stopped doing it because he realized, this is not good for the government. This is Nixon and all that stuff. It was demonized. So the culture.
Was this around like the MK Ultra time? Are you familiar with that? I think that's the
No.
experiments they did on like Charles Manson, where
Oh,
it was fucked up. I don't know all the details, so I won't even speak on it. But I know MK Ultra was some sort of like kind of underground CIA, government, FBI experiment that they did on some serial killers and stuff like that. And there was some brainwashing involved. I don't know. That's as much as I know. So I won't speak out of turn. But yeah, I found it. So here's my thing. I wanted to do it just for the therapy aspect. And I think from what I've gathered, it's got a pretty significant impact on connection with a higher power, seeing and experiencing God rather than just like trying to think my way into God, higher power, like experience.
have you done them before?
I have twice recreationally. One time I was in a blackout and I don't really remember much from it. I just remember like I went home with a girl and I looked at her bed and it was like a mile long. And I'm like, you got a big bed. And then I got into it, slept it off. And then the next morning I was super hungover, crashed out from Adderall too. Then I decided I still had some mushrooms left, so it would probably be a good idea to take them while I was hungover and just totally dopamine depleted. And I went and laid in my bed for like 6 straight hours and just stared at the ceiling, tried to sleep, not a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
So I never did them with the right intentions.
That's a big part of it.
Right. My intentions were only to, let's get fucked up. Oh, this will make me feel different. Let's do this,
Yeah.
And that's kind of my... Still, I don't know whether or not I will rebook the appointment. Part of me wants to, and I think my intentions going in are clean. Like I'm not going to get fucked up. I'm going to do some healing. I'm going to move through some, inadequacy and PTSD issues. But
I want to add something to that, what you just said.
Yeah.
If you do go, you do decide, because I've done them a couple of times. And because the last time you did it, you said you were drunk, and then you did it while you were hungover, so you're kind of in a different headspace.
Yeah.
If you do have, it's a smart thing to not take them for fun, I think. Now that's an opinion, because some people do want to just stare at lights and be like, "Ooh, fun." Yeah," and that's fine if that works for you. But if you have stuff that's repressed, even if you set out to have a good time, that shit can come up.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that it will. It's not for certain, but there's a good chance. So I think when people think of using psilocybin as a recreational drug, I think it's important to keep in mind that throughout human history, those have been used in rituals, supervised by a shaman for a reason.
Ayahuasca,
all
that stuff.
Like you're going in there to face not the bad things, but to face what's actually there, good and bad, which is different than like when I'm drinking. I'm going in there I'm drinking to not face anything because I don't want to face anything at all.
Right.
It's an escape, so I don't see it as much of as an escape as other drugs, because you're actually facing stuff. It's not about having a good time, it's about having a real time.
Yeah, it's a huge distinguishing factor, because escape is kind of the exact opposite of what my intentions are, and that's like to really go into them and put them to bed. And the therapist gave one interesting example, because I was like, well, what's the difference between the psilocybin and the ketamine therapy? Because ketamine looks like it's only 2 hours, way cheaper. And what's the deal with that? She's like, well, on ketamine, you don't have a choice of where you go. Like the doors are going to open and you have no choice. With psilocybin, you approach the door and you decide whether or not you're going to open it.
How much were you going to take? What do they
I don't know the ketamine amount, and the mushroom amount I'm assuming would just be a few grams, but I didn't ask.
Okay.
But that was one thing I was like, well, even though my intentions are clear, I could see my little fucking cunning, baffling, powerful addict brain say I get through the thing and she offers me like, well, it helps to like microdose a couple times afterwards, it just this little tiny bit, I'd be like, okay. And I think like that would be a line I would have to draw. Like, I'm not taking anything home. And if like, and if I really wanted to do this for recreational sake, I would just I would find somebody and pay $50 rather than like $900 to do it through the medical facility. So it's like, checking my intentions, it's pretty clear, but we'll see. Maybe in the next few months, I'll do the journey, and would love to come and share it on here and talk about what happened. But
I'll say too on the psilocybin, I can't speak to ketamine. I think ketamine is addictive. I've heard that it is.
Yeah.
I've never done ketamine. Psilocybin is, in my experience, every single time I've taken a drug that's changed, altered my mood. I am always thinking, when is the next time I can do this? I did not have that experience with psilocybin.
Yeah.
And if you have a real experience, if you face some shit that you didn't want to face, you're not going to want to be taking it again anytime soon.
Yeah.
Even if you come out of it feeling like you worked through, you're like, all right, now I have work to do following that experience. And I think that's kind of what, again, it's not why I got into AA, but it was like, my thought wasn't, when's the next time I can do this? It was like, what do I need to do to want to be alive?
Yeah.
It's different.
Whew. Yeah. My moment like that, it didn't come through psilocybin, but like the first moment I realized that like sobriety was probably the answer for me. In a way, it actually kind of came from Eminem dropping the Relapse album in 2009.
Oh, okay.
Because I was such a fan. I'm still a fan, but he took like a 4-year hiatus, and I was like yearning for new Eminem music. And then he came out with this album called Relapse, but he was completely sober when he recorded it and like wrote it and all this stuff. And it just sounded like I fucking love that album. And I'm like, oh, he's like sounding good. He's back to writing good. He's like, he looks good. He's clear. And then like, I'm like, well, if fucking Eminem can get sober through all the shit he's been through, I can do that too, and like maybe come out better than I was before. Like I was stuck in this mind frame where like I needed the alcohol to do this, I needed the weed for this. If I wanted to have a chance at school or anything, I needed the Adderall, like all these things. But I'm like, no, maybe that's my problem, not my solution. Like, so in a way, it kind of showed me what a sober life could look like, being like sharper, more like clear, and yeah, that was kind of my like nudge. You know, it took about 6 months before I was ready, but
well, music's spiritual too.
Yeah,
you know, so that's a powerful story. Like music is kind of like it's a mind altering thing in itself. You know, so that Eminem is. And then after that, he wrote Recovery was after.
Then he
right?
had Recovery,
okay.
yeah.
That was so that was like a year after. It was 2010, right? Recovery.
Yeah, they came out about a year apart. There was Relapse, which is probably my and I wouldn't say it's his best album, but it's like my personal favorite. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where like I could throw that album on any time, and it's like my first time hearing it all over again. And then Recovery was great too.
I think everyone has an album like that.
Yeah.
Mine's Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar.
God, I love that album.
That's my favorite album of all time.
I was going to say, I think that is, not only is it a classic album, I think it's the last classic hip-hop album that I can think of.
Yeah.
A lot of people liked To Pimp a Butterfly better because it's got that like jazzy aspect.
Yeah.
And Kendrick's, you know, he's one of the greatest of all time. But Good Kid, Mad City is another one where it's just like, it hits everything. It's storytelling. It's like it's a concept album where you listen from the beginning to end.
Yeah.
Each track, it stands out, and it has like, not only is he clever in his wordplay and the stories he's telling, but it's also got like mainstream appeal. It's like it's a very, very rare.
You don't see it off. Like to your point, that was 2012. So
wow.
that was
Jesus.
That was
13
October
years ago?
2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like a coming of age album.
Yes.
That's what that's really all about. And I was just starting my freshman year of college. And I'm a white kid from the suburbs.
Right.
And I was like, somehow I felt like he was like, when he was describing his experiences, he was talking about me.
Yeah.
I was like, which is crazy. How's that? He grew up in Compton. You know, that's how you can tell someone's a really good storyteller, is like they put you in their shoes so thoroughly that you actually can, like, when you listen to the music, you can feel what it's like to be a kid in Compton, even though you're just some yuppie from the suburbs.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. And I'm sure everyone knows by now, but he released Swimming Pools, and it became like a drinking album people listen to in the clubs.
No one knows what that song's about.
Yeah.
Especially the ending,
I
the
know.
last part.
Are you listening to the words? This is like, I don't want to say it's anti-drinking, but it's like drinking only because of peer pressure. Like, like, now open your eyes and listen to me, Kendrick. And all these, it's like succumbing to peer pressure. So it's fantastic. Like, to create a drinking album or a drinking song that becomes like a theme for some people, but have it, you know, underneath be like, I didn't want to get fucked up, but they made me, you know?
Right.
It was peer pressure.
And everyone's, like you were saying, like, you're at a party and everyone's doing that exact thing. And the irony is that everyone doesn't understand what the song's about. You know?
Yeah. Trying to think of an example, but there are other songs that sound fun and poppy, like Pumped Up Kicks almost. Like, it sounds like a fun poppy song, but it's like, oh, this is about a school shooting.
This is a serious fucking thing. Yeah.
This is very serious. Yeah. Or a lot of those, like, Born in the USA. A lot of them were like anti-war songs. Like CCR did a lot. They sound like, yeah, let's rally and go fucking get the enemy. But it's like, no, we're protesting the war.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool.
Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Is another song or another band that, like, people who tend to lean heavily into positions of not raging against the machine. They lean into it. It's really like, are you listening to
right. Right. That's so funny. But speaking of recovery, you worked, or still do, I don't know, as a recovery coach for
peer,
kind of
peer specialist.
Okay.
Like, kind of like a recovery coach kind of a thing.
Okay. Do you get any, like, crazy stories from that without you know, breaking any anonymity? I would assume that would be a position where, like, you don't know what you're gonna get on any given day. Like, if that job was, I was at that job for about 2 years. Okay.
And I was about a year and a half sober when I started that job. I was out in Columbia, Missouri, and that role was basically, during the day you're in the office and you're working with your clients and you're taking them to meetings, and you're sort of like a quasi, it's not good to say this, but it's the truth. You're a quasi therapist.
Okay.
Mainly because you have the lived experience of being an addict or alcoholic, and the therapist often does not. So they don't trust the therapist. So you end up hearing a lot of the stuff, and then as a team, you talk about what he or she said, and then the therapist kind of integrates that into their sessions and so on and so forth. And then at night, you're on call, and you shift, your days shift. But if you're called, it could be like 2 a.m. Somebody would, have an overdose at the and then they'd be at the hospital, and it's your job to go see them and kind of be like their first point of contact, was how they phrased it. And you basically try to get them to agree to go to rehab, which is an interesting.
So do you work with them? Do you continue to work with them after
you
their
do
stint in rehab?
usually?
Okay.
Unless there's a conflict, sometimes people will. It's more so the female peer specialists, if they are helping a male client, that person might develop feelings for her.
Yeah.
And then they have to, like, move him to someone else.
Okay.
So they try not to pair you with the opposite sex, but sometimes it happens, because that's just, you can't always plan for that. But as far as, there's, like, just tons of crazy stories things I never thought I would be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet. I texted you a couple times. I'm like, I was interested in the field because to me, I interpret it as like, oh, I'll get paid to be a sponsor almost. But yeah, the schedule, and it didn't pay super well. I mean, it's a good way. I would say it's a good way to get into the field if you don't have like a degree or master's in it.
Yeah.
But you work with people, you help people. But yeah, the way you kind of put it was like probably not the best for someone with a kid because your schedule's kind of all over
Definitely
the place. You don't know when you're going to get called in. It sounds like 2 a.m. Did you ever have to do any of those 2 a.m. visits?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Man, I mean, it doesn't matter if you got like an exam the next day or like a big.
I was in school at the same time too.
Jeez,
So that would happen. But some of my professors were amicable though, so they understood that.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly, I think that field as currently constructed is deeply flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the institutional problem, and then just sort of the, you've heard the revolving doors issue, and the longer you're in it, the longer you start to see that, and it makes it hard to tell yourself that you're a part of. And this is just my experience, but it's a lot of my friends who went into that field felt the same thing. And the other thing too is, as soon as you get paid to do that, to take people to meetings, and you don't sponsor them, but you sort of are in a way, it changes what it all means. It takes it out of the spiritual realm a good deal, and then it almost it's not they don't intentionally have it this way, but it almost encourages you to take on responsibility for what that person chooses to do or not do, and then you feel you're either really high or really low. Your person, and most of my people didn't make it. They either died or they went to jail or they relapsed. I never heard from them again. So if you go into it thinking like it's just going to be like a whole lot of recovery going on, not that it's most people don't make it.
Yeah, I hate stories. My least favorite part of going to meetings and programs is, oh, where's Jonathan been? Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a couple months. Then it comes out, something happened in his day, and he ended up at a liquor store. He ended up at the dope house, and he had that thought where it's just like, okay, just one more time, and they don't make it back. A lot of fucking young people, and
I think of our friend. I probably shouldn't say his name, but you probably.
It's okay.
You probably know what I'm talking about. Around your age. Church Street.
Owen?
Jordan. Owen too. I actually partied with
Owen. Wait. Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
I know he wasn't going to meetings for a while.
I haven't seen, no one's seen or heard from him in like 6 or 7 years.
Really?
Yeah. I have no idea where he is, what he's doing. Last I heard from him, he started dating this new girl who was, drinker, smoked a lot of weed, yada yada. I've texted him, called him. He deleted his socials, so I have no idea where he is or how he's doing. He could be fine. I just
his dad. Well, we're using first names, so I don't think we're breaking anonymity here. But his dad would often go to the VFW meeting.
Yep, and the 8 and Taft too.
Yeah, I remember after the Church Street meeting Thursdays, we went and got ice cream a couple of times, just the three of us.
Yeah.
Fuck, Jordan. Hope you're doing okay, brother. I found meeting attendance has just plummeted since COVID.
Yeah.
And I think COVID started it with just people not wanting to be indoors around people. But my social media feed, I don't know if it's just because of what I stay and look at. I look at TikTok sometimes and whatever. It's so much anti-AA shit on TikTok that like I'll look at the comments and it'll be a video about like the creepy old guy at meetings and just this huge movement of like nobody wanting to go to AA. It makes me sad. I mean, is it a perfect thing? No. There are for sure creepy old guys who like newcomer, pretty girl, whatever, struggling.
13 steppers.
Yeah. And that part is terrible. But if you find meetings where there's none of that, it's really, really a beautiful thing. But fuck, I knew that I hadn't seen him in a while. I had just hoped he was a case of like maybe went back out but still doing okay, because there are some cases like that where people probably not doing great but okay. It's a
slow
bummer.
burning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my disease, my addiction, whatever, works in the way that like if I were to go back out today, knock on wood, I wouldn't end up in a hospital, jail, or institution. But like I've done that before. Like in 2012, I tested the waters again, and it took me like, and I stayed like at meetings while I was struggling and drinking and stuff like, and it took me 6 months to hit a bottom again and be like, oh fuck, I know where to go now. Like
I remember you telling me that story. How you were like, you started off like, I'm gonna have 1 or 2 drinks or something, and that you were actually successful for like a number of days.
6 days, yeah.
Which is a huge deal for an alcoholic. You're like,
wild.
You think you're cured, you know? Like,
yeah,
like a week's a big deal, you know?
I always tell a story at open talks, but I relapsed in New York City with some buddies, and I had a fucking awesome time after 2.5 years sober. I had a great time, to be honest. But it put me in a place where I wasn't sure whether or not I was an alcoholic. So I called my sponsor, Kim, and I was like, hey, I don't know if I'm an alcoholic anymore. It might have just been a bad luck when I first got sober. I'm going to try a controlled drinking test. And my controlled drinking test was like 1 drink a day for 30 days. And if I could do it, that meant I was not an alcoholic. I can control my drinking. And a lot was riding on this test. Like I took every ounce of program knowledge and willpower, determination to have 1 drink a day. And I don't mean like 1/5. I mean like 1 can of beer or 1 glass of wine or like 1 little shot, 1 mixed drink. And yeah, I got 6 days in, and then my brain turned on me, and then I convinced myself that 1 drink per hour was also controlled drinking. Like if you go out to a bar,
as long as it falls in the definition of controlled.
Yeah, exactly. I changed my definition of it, not even realizing what was it. First of all, I didn't even realize that like just to get to the point where you feel like you have to try a controlled drinking test.
Yeah.
Red flag.
Yeah,
you're an alcoholic.
You're there.
Yeah. like if you reach out, like this is a funny story. There's a comedian, Joe List, that a huge fan. He's in the program, but he has this story where like someone reached out to him on the DMs after hearing that he was sober, just a fan, and they were like, how did you know that you had a drinking problem? And he's like, I'll help you out. You have a drinking problem. like if you're invading a stranger's DMs at 3:00 in the morning, asking them how they got sober, you've done it. Yeah, you got a problem.
Congratulations, you're an alcoholic.
Yeah, for sure.
I gotta pee again.
Okay, cool. You know what? While you're doing that, I'm gonna queue up something good.
We gotta do the
that's
peeves still, right?
Oh yeah, peeves. But I was gonna do some Wim Hof. I was gonna pull up the Wim Hof breathing. So if you are listening now, Zach is using the bathroom, but we had an idea. Well, Zach had an idea. I thought it was awesome. Anybody that has heard of Wim Hof, you may have heard of his like guided breathing technique that's supposed to put you in a state of like kind of like pure tranquility, and it's really good for your immune system and whatnot. And if you go to YouTube and just type in Wim Hof breathing technique, you can do it right along with us. But yeah, we're going to do it here on this podcast. It's 10 minutes of a breathing exercise, and I would love for you, the listener, to do it right along with us. If you have no interest, feel free to skip ahead 10 minutes. You're not missing anything. But I'm going to queue it up on YouTube. Oh, I lied. It's actually 11 minutes. It's, So just to give you a little background, it's 30 breaths where you do fully in. So you breathe in pretty much as deep as your lungs will allow, and then you let it out. You don't have to exhale all of your air, but you just kind of like... And ideally, if you can, you breathe in through your nose and you exhale through your mouth. You do that 30 times. And I have the video queued up. I'll play it while we're here. And after the 30 times, you take one last one in and then you hold it. And I think the way this video is set up, you do 3 rounds of that and it will go from like a 1 minute hold to a 2 minute hold to a 3 minute hold. And if you're sitting there thinking like, I can't hold my breath for 1 minute, let alone 2 or 3, just watch, because the breathing leading up to it, okay.
If you want,
yeah,
because that's the YouTube video,
it's
right?
YouTube, yeah.
I think they do. I have the app, so
Okay.
we can if you want to customize it, we can customize it. Or we can do that one. I think the holds are like 1, 1.5, and 1.5.
Okay, so not as long.
Not
Okay.
as long. So I
Okay.
know you said you did. I couldn't. If we did 4 minutes, I would pass out. So I know you said you could do 4.
Yeah,
so that
well,
might be.
I think it's best to do it from the app, only because
Okay.
if the listener wants to skip this part,
Oh yeah.
I would feel better giving like a designated time. So you know what? While we're doing this, I'll probably cut this part out. But I actually have to use the bathroom, so I will be right back. Okay, before we get into the breathing, welcome back, everybody. Before we get into the breathing, I was checking my notes here, and I have this theory. Has nothing to do with anything we've talked about.
Okay.
Have you ever purchased an umbrella?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, well, my theory is bullshit then.
Oh.
Just had this.
I should preface.
Yeah.
My umbrella was a sun umbrella for backpacking,
Okay.
which does do stuff for rain,
Okay.
but it's I got it for the sun.
Okay. I was like looking back on my entire history on this planet. I'm like, I've always had an umbrella, but I never purchased one. They just manifest out of nowhere. Like it's usually in my car. And I didn't have this thought until my old one just totally busted. Like it would flip inside out and it wouldn't stay. So I had to buy an umbrella off Amazon. I'm like, has anybody ever done this? Or do we just have our mom's old umbrella because she had an extra one? I don't know. Okay.
The ancestral umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So let's get into our breathing mode. I'm going to try not to breathe too heavily into the mic. And like I said, this will be 11 minutes, gang. And if you don't want to do or partake in any of the breathing, feel free to skip ahead 11 minutes. So here we go.
Hi guys, welcome.
That's Wim.
This is a guided breathing session. Relax to the deepest. Lie down, sit down, whatever it takes, relax. Are you ready? Here we go. Round number 1.
Okay.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Just go with the flow of the breath. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, into the belly, into the chest, and let go. Like a wave. Make it circular. Fully in and letting go. Just keep on going. No pause between inhalation and exhalation. Ten more. Fully in, letting go. Five more. Let's give it all we got. Last one. Fully in and let go. All right. 1 minute breath hold from now on. Be in this moment. Let the body do what the body is capable of doing. Be aware of your heartbeat. Slow it down and just be in this moment. Let that relaxation spread down to your toes, into your fingertips, to the base of your neck and head. You are almost there. Do you want to prolong your breath hold? Pause the video now and continue when you feel the urge to breathe. Okay, recovery breath in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a deep breath in and hold for 15 seconds. Exhale in 3, 2, 1. Let it go. Round number 2. Back into that rhythm. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. In, out, in, out, in, out, into the belly, into the chest, and let go. Like a wave. Make it circular. Fully in, letting go. Just keep on going. No pause between inhalation and exhalation. In with peace, out with stress. 10 more. Fully in, letting go. Nice, deep, circular breaths. 5 more. Let's give it all we got. Last one. Fully in. And on the exhale, stop. 1.5 minute breath hold from now on. Feel, become aware of your body. If your hands and feet are tingling, or you feel your body temperature is changing, that's okay. You're doing fantastic. If you need to breathe before I give the cue, that's okay. You are almost there. Do you want to prolong your breath hold? Pause the video now and continue when you feel the urge to breathe. When you're ready, fully in and hold for 15 seconds. Exhale in 3, 2, 1. Let it go. Round number 3. Back into that rhythm. Breathe in, breathe out, Just keep on going. No pause between inhalation and exhalation. In with peace, out with stress. Ten more. Fully in, let it go. Nice, deep, circular breaths. Five more. Let's give it all we got. Last one. Fully in. And on the exhale, stop. 1.5 minute breath hold from now on. Become aware of the blood running through your veins, your heart beating. Feel. Thirty seconds left. You are almost there. Do you want to prolong your breath hold? Pause the video now and continue when you feel the urge to breathe. All right. Breathe in. 15 seconds. Exhale in 3, 2, 1. Let it go. Let your breathing return to normal as you finish up the round. Move your body bit by bit, starting with your fingers and your toes. Let your breathing normalize. If you liked this guided breathing session, we got more for you. We got a free app on our website. Download it. It's good stuff.
That was a good idea. Couple of thoughts on that. First one was I find that to be most beneficial when I'm stressed or overly caffeinated. It really, really helps. And it's been a while since I've done it, but it's crazy that like on a normal, just like whatever, the idea of holding my breath for 1 minute sounds almost impossible. But like, I don't know about you, but when we did the 90-second holds, like I felt like I could have gone for another minute or so of holding my breath. And it's cool how like fully oxygenating the body helps. And one other thought is I hear a lot of people say like they can't meditate, therefore they don't meditate. And usually they say they can't meditate because they can't quiet their mind. And I'm always like, well, that's the point. Like if you're thinking too much, like you just think too much, and that's meditation. But for anyone that struggles to meditate and wants to get into it, that is the 10-minute, 11-minute, whatever breath thing by breathing technique by Wim Hof is very approachable because it's not about like controlling your thoughts. It's all about the breath. So
Yeah, and I totally agree to what you said about doing that while maybe even already in a heightened state. I know that there's a really good video on YouTube, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a doctor. He talks about what this breathing does, and it put part of when you're doing the successive breaths, it puts your body into a state of fight or flight, but you're doing it voluntarily, and that's a very different experience than when you're put into that state when you don't want to be. But it also puts you in, you activates your parasympathetic nervous system when you're doing the hold. So you're going back and forth between these two states.
what is parasitic nervous? Like, what does that control?
That is you have two nervous systems. One's the sympathetic, the other's parasympathetic. Okay. When you're put in a state of either panic or excitement, good or bad, that's a sympathetic.
Okay.
It basically turns you on and tells you it's go time. The other parasympathetic is the other system, and that one is in charge of rest. And that one tells your body to relax. And when you're doing meditation or diaphragmatic breathing, which is part of what this is, diaphragmatic breathing is. Are you familiar with this?
That's not the box breathing, is it? Is that different?
Similar.
Okay.
It's not just the holding, the pattern that's in box breathing. It's how you physically breathe. So the optimal breathing form is in through the stomach and then the chest. And then as you exhale through the stomach. So a way to practice this, and I do this at work with stroke patients. There's all sorts of benefits for meditation. One of them is it helps your neuroplasticity, which is huge for people with strokes.
Yeah.
So what you do, you can put one hand on your belly and one on your chest, and when you're breathing, when you're doing diaphragmatic breathing, you should feel your belly rise first on the inhale, and then the chest. And then when you exhale, same thing. You should feel your belly go in toward your navel and then your chest. And that's the breathing that you do naturally when you're relaxed. You can also do it when you're not relaxed to put yourself into a relaxed state. When you're panicked, you do the opposite. You don't do long breaths. You do shallow chest breaths, basically. And if you work like a desk job or any job in this society, we are put into a state of fight or flight when we're not faced with like life-threatening issues. So chronic stress in this otherwise very cushy, comfortable capitalist world. So we naturally know how to breathe like this, by the way. Like when you're born as a baby, you do diaphragmatic breathing. It's a learned behavior to be in that shallow breathing style.
Interesting. Yeah, I find like the breath is so underrated when it comes to just a mental health tool. I find so often that like I'll be like watching a TV show or something and I'll be like, okay, calm down, take a deep breath. And it's like one of those things whenever I hear somebody refer to breathing at all, it forces me to then consider my own breathing. Like, and it's like, oh, I haven't intentionally taken any breaths today.
Yeah.
And then I'll just focus. And then just that small act of being aware of my own breathing, I will, like whatever's going on in my head, it'll turn the volume down on it. And kind of the same with posture too. Like posture is a weird thing where like I'm rarely aware of my posture, but when I'm just kind of whatever, sitting down, at work is a good example. I'm probably like, protracted, like typing on a keyboard or looking at my phone, shoulders forward, kind of slouched. But then like I hear someone mention posture at all. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have to be mindful of my posture or else I slouch and I don't want to be, 80 and just kind of that hunchback form. Like that's so sad to me when, people, I mean, we're going to lose height naturally, but the people who lose 6 inches to a foot because they can't stand erect, like a chest out, aware of breathing, fully in. Yeah, he's awesome. I remember stumbled upon Wim Hof in COVID times. It was 2020, and I did the breathing in the cold showers every day. And one thing I would not recommend, don't drive or operate heavy machinery when you're doing the Wim Hof breathing, because after a certain number of rounds, I'll start to get real tingly and kind of lightheaded, like if I stand up too quickly. And there's been a couple of times on the road where I've veered off, didn't cause any damage or get into an accident, get pulled over, anything like that. But I was like, oh, I should probably not huff and drive.
Yeah.
don't huff and drive. They don't give you that warning. But yeah, that was good. And that was a good idea. I feel 20% calmer and quieter. Let's see. We had tossed out a couple topics. Well, you had some pet peeves before we did the breathing. Anything that just annoys you? I hate calling them pet peeves because that's not, pet peeves are one thing, but just like things that annoy you, like tick you off.
Well, I have one at the two, because you had mentioned like think of two or three.
Yeah.
And I just wanted you were like no road rage or traffic.
It's just
I was like, shit, that was a very.
I know, it's just so common. It's just so common.
It's overused, and usually it's used to. It's like a metaphor for some other thing anyway. It's very rarely just like the road.
Yeah.
But the first one that came to my mind, and this is a pet peeve, but it does really set me off in a way that's completely inappropriate. There is a word for it. There's like a Latin word for it. It's some kind of phobia. It starts with an M. It's like minophobia or something.
Okay.
It's the chewing one.
Oh.
Like people chew their gum like that. Mm. I have thoughts in my head when my dad's like this. So he used to chew Nicorette gum.
Okay.
And he doesn't anymore. It's good for my dad. But he now chews Trident. You find the word?
Misophonia.
Misophonia.
Strong emotional reaction to specific sounds, especially chewing, slurping, and lick.
Damn.
I don't even like that word, slurp.
It drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I think of the word pet peeve, I think of something like, that kind of grinds my gears. But that's not what that internal I get. I live it.
Yeah.
Like, I get violent. I don't think about hitting anybody, but I want to hit a wall, or I get so uncontrollably angry, and I have to like do all of these mental gymnastics, because my dad, he doesn't think of, and most people don't sit there and think to themselves, I'm going to just slurp or chomp. Mm-hmm. They just do it. And so like, I rarely call people out for it, because I feel like it's like kind of like it's weird. Mm-hmm. Like, telling someone how they ought to chew.
Yeah, it's tough.
But if people you're close with, you can kind of, push that envelope a little bit. So I'll be like, Dad, please chew with your mouth closed. Mm-hmm. And he'll be like, oh, sorry. Mm-hmm. Like 20 seconds will go by, and then his autopilot programming turns back on, and he's back to it.
Shout out Autopilot Podcast.
There we go. Yep. But the hashtag, so there's something about that really upsets me, and I don't know why it upsets me. It's, what are they, there's nothing personal happening. It's not like them leaning over and Yeah. They're just watching TV and chewing gum.
Yeah.
And they're just totally minding their own business, and I'm literally like, it's as if they're chewing me. Mm-hmm. It's what it feels like.
Interesting. My wife has probably a mild form of that, and I probably do it a little bit to some extent with the mouth sounds, but I know one thing that really got under her skin. So I ordered this gum that's supposed to exercise your jawline. It's called like Jawco or something like that.
I've seen that.
It's super hard gum, and you chew it. And I actually did notice a little bit of a difference in my jawline after I chewed it for like 40 days or whatever. But it's so loud. Like because you gotta really chomp into it. And I found myself, she's like, do you have to chew your gum that loud and at me? And I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then even when I'm chewing like a piece of Orbit, she'll be like, you enjoying that gum, are you? I'm like, oh yeah.
It gets creative with the prompts. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a good one. Any other ones?
So I wanted to keep these light.
Okay. Yeah. Because they're fun. It's like Seinfeld. The milder, the better.
But like, I just went off of what like emotionally sets me off. Mm. And the other thing is, I guess myself. I am my own pet peeve.
Okay.
And that's even illustrated in the last anecdote, because I'm like, they're minding their business. Who am I? You see like all this like negative self-talk, and I could talk myself off that ledge a little more softly. So I just have a tendency when I criticize myself, even when I'm trying to do it in a kind of like, lighthearted way or turn it into a joke. There's always some part of me, even if it's not implicitly stated, or explicitly stated, it's deep down. There's like this disgust at some performance. I'm not doing something right. And that's sort of just like that laterally across my entire life. There's this guy, I can't remember his name. I think he used to go to the Salvation Army. He was from early sobriety. I can't remember his name though.
Okay.
He would talk about the asshole in his head. And he called him his roommate. And he gave him a name, and he called him Jerry. And that's what it is.
So you got a Jerry.
This is just a Jerry who's like, you fucking asshole, why don't you put your dishes away? Just all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to pet peeves, like that is, maybe I'm not even describing it well, but it is an actual pet peeve of mine. And I make myself more angry all the time, like constantly, because of that thing. And then it just amplifies the other things that are probably your more cliche or normal pet peeves. It turns them into like just huge fucking issues.
Yeah, they piss you off. The pet peeve will piss you off, and then you will get pissed off at yourself for being pissed off. Like, it's not that kind of thing.
It layers.
Yeah.
You know, I can't just be mad about the chewing. I'm mad that I'm mad about the chewing, and now it's just a bad. You know, it's like a mirror, that two mirrors facing each other, and it just goes infinitely in both directions, whichever way you turn. It's kind of how it feels like.
The inner critic, it's referred to as. Have you ever read the book The Artist Way? We might have talked about it.
I think we talked. I think I have that book. And
okay.
It's collected dust on my shelf. I probably should read it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for that. I found, because my inner critic, probably to the same extent that you have, it's always like trying to tear down ideas that I have that I think are good. So then from there, I'll like seek external validation. Like, is this good? Am I
ChatGPT, is this a good idea?
Right. And then
it's always like really affirming. Like, you're a genius.
Yeah.
Brilliant point.
Yeah. I'll check. I'll like with the idea with the podcast at work. It was like, okay, I think I'm onto something. But then slowly but surely, my brain will start to pick it apart and tell me every reason why it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Speaking of ChatGPT, so 2 months ago, I checked myself into the ER because I was just struggling mentally, and I felt like going to a psych ward would have been too expensive. So I went to the ER, and sitting like, I'm looking at the sign, I'm parked facing it, and I just go, So I go to ChatGPT. I'm like, ChatGPT, I'm at the emergency room. I'm having kind of like a mental health thing. What do I do? It's like, you've got this, Chris. You're brave. You've done a good job up to this point. Whether or not you go in is totally up to you. And I'm like, okay, well, really what I'm nervous about, like, I want to go get help and talk to somebody, but like, I'm afraid it's going to be super expensive. And he's like, that's valid.
Fuck, I didn't think of that.
It's like, you know what? Just go in there, tell them you're having a mental health crisis, and ask them what the cost's going to be, and they'll tell you. So I'm like, okay, so ChatGPT like psyched me up. I go in there, way too positive, probably for what they were expecting. I'm like, hey, I'm having a mental health crisis. Can you help me? And she's like, yeah, sure.
She's like, I agree. Yes, you are.
Yeah. ChatGPT says I'm doing good. And she's like, okay, well, we got to get you into triage. I'm like, before we do that, ChatGPT asked me to ask you, how much is this going to cost? She's like, I don't know. So I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, she doesn't know. No. And then they go and they they have me in triage where they're taking like my vitals, whatever. And they're like, do you want to kill yourself? I'm like, you see, now that's a complicated question, because like, do I want to? Not necessarily, but like, do I want to? And is the only thing holding me back like my fear of like other people's sadness? Yeah. And they're like, it's a yes or no question. And I'm like, fuck. Okay, well then I guess no.
Let's make it binary and really traumatic for you.
Yeah. So then they give me this then they give me into a waiting room. Before I know it, I have this like gown on, and the first lady that walks in, I hold up a hand. I go, hold on. Before you do any of this stuff, can you tell me a ballpark of how much this is going to cost? And she's like, no, sir, I can't do that. I'm like, okay, well then I am checking myself out. So I put my clothes back on. And I check myself out and whatever, and then they send me a bill for like $500 for taking my blood pressure, and that's it. And then I'm like, okay, something pet peeve, American healthcare, like that shouldn't cost me $500. Like,
no,
especially when ChatGPT.
It's for you to basically go and tell someone I'm having a hard time. Oh,
exactly.
That will cost you $500.
Yeah, for us to do anything.
So I shouldn't have said anything to you at all.
I know. And then so, they call and they're like, where do we send this bill? I'm like,
up your ass.
Yeah. I handed the phone to Emily and she really laid into him. She's like, you could bother somebody else. American healthcare system, whatever.
No, dude, that is.
We need free healthcare.
We do.
Bernie. Here's an interesting question. So last podcast, I don't know the date in which I'm going to release this, but my last podcast here I did with Will and Brian, my two buddies, and I felt like an interesting topic came up where Harry Potter came up. We're talking Harry Potter.
Okay.
And Will was like, I love Harry Potter. Not a fan of J.K. Rowling because of her whole outspoken thing, whatever.
Oh, right.
And I'm not touching that one. Whatever you think, I agree with you, whatever.
You all have to agree with what I think.
Yeah, exactly. Or I just want you to like me. I will agree with you. That's you listening. I agree with everything that you think.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. He goes, and it was a very balanced perspective, and I loved it, and it gave me an idea for a segment, maybe? I don't know. But he said, I love Harry Potter, don't like J.K. Rowling, but I love Harry Potter, and I still have the books, still read them. And I'm like, that's really cool. Like, so my question to you is there a person in society, whether it's a famous musician, actor, artist, where you love their work, but fundamentally and strongly disagree with them on their like political stances?
Political specifically?
Yeah, it's like the whole thing. Like, I guess Adolf Hitler was also a painter, and it's like, and I think he sucked. I don't think he was any good. But it's like, say he was good. Can you still like Hitler's art, but meanwhile having a reason to hate him as a human? And it's like, I think that's kind of a healthy thing. Like, thinking of somebody that maybe they're outspoken politically, and you're like, well, I like your music, but I fucking wouldn't want to have coffee with you or something like that. I think, I don't want to answer for you, but I think for me, I'll be honest, like, I think Kid Rock is an interesting one because I'll be honest, I kind of like Kid Rock's music. Like, he's got a handful of bangers. Some of his songs absolutely suck, but he's got a handful of bangers that, like, especially in the summertime, like, I'll throw on fucking Born Free. I'll throw on You Never Met a Motherfucker Quite Like Me. I'll throw on his Midnight Train to Memphis. He's got so many bangers. And then I, see footage of him at a concert, like, I'm running for president. It's like, wouldn't vote for you, You see, if I was still in my drinking days, maybe we could share a beer on a boat or something like that. And I'm kind of neutral politically. Shit on the left that I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. There's shit on the right that I'm like, yeah, I think that makes sense. But yeah, I'll toss it over to you. Any like musician or anything like that where you're like, fuck your political stance, but I'll still listen to your music or watch your movie?
Well, I think like. So I probably should say someone who's well known, not like an author that someone might not know.
Who?
You know
well,
what I mean?
We'll start with an author if that's the first one.
And it's not even political. It's he had his name's David Foster Wallace.
Oh, I know that name.
He's a extremely talented writer. Probably the best writer of the 90s.
What did he write?
Infinite Jest is the most. It's like a tome. It's like this big.
Okay.
There's all sorts of footnotes in there. It's by design a very laborious read.
Mm.
But that's kind of the point. That's sort of part of what the book is about. He was also in the program, by the way.
Okay.
Um,
You know who brought him up on this podcast was Nick T.
really?
Yeah, David Fosterell. He talked about his commencement speech. I remember that.
Oh
now.
yeah, This Is Water.
Yeah,
That's a great. That's I think every 19-year-old boy in the country should have to listen to that commencement speech. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So I'm torn because, but he had the other thing about this is we're all imperfect and we all have blemishes, and this is not a political issue. That he just had some stuff with women that surfaced in this not in like an extremely damning way, and he's been dead for a while, so it didn't carry the same momentum as say like Louis C.K. when his thing happened. So I had this issue. I was like, shit, this is like one of my favorite authors ever. And I made the decision that I could like his work. And I didn't even necessarily need to dislike him as a person. However, I could cut out this part of him and be able to say with confidence this is bad. And I'm allowed to have nuance there. Having said that, I think there's a difference, too, between somebody who is doing the bad stuff and someone who did the bad stuff. You know, are they still doing it? Is it part of their past? Have they done something to... Because I do think it's toxic that, like, if someone has let's say, a really fucked up political view, or they've done some really fucked up things, and then they're like, this is fucked up, I'm going to change this. Do we let them change? Or are they forced? Because if that's the case, all the stuff I did from ages 19 to 23, you know what I mean? I had really fucked up views. I said really terrible things. You know, do I get to be forgiven for those things? Do I get to move beyond them? And I think when you're younger like that, a lot of people will sort of, well, you were young, you know, but people make mistakes when they're older too.
Yeah.
So I think you can like someone's art and disagree with them on stuff.
Yeah.
Long
and
story short,
as you're talking, it's reminding me of a quote I heard, a fellow by the name of Chase Hughes. Apparently he's an expert in influence, persuasion, and human behavior. He said this, I think it might have been on Rogan. I don't remember what podcast he was on, but he said, if you can't see anything wrong with the side you agree with, or you can't see anything right with the side you disagree with, you have been manipulated. And whether that's manipulation from outside forces or internally, like, I think the nuance is a key factor, and especially if it's something that somebody did years and years ago and they haven't done it since or said it since, you know. It's, I think around that, like, I don't know, was it 2018 to like 2023? It seemed like there was this huge uprising, some of it good, some of it like pushing back against people, you know, in whatever position, but some of it was like, well, yeah, but fucking John Wayne was an actor in the 60s. Of course his views were going to be a little fucked up. That was like 60 years ago.
People make the mistake that they would hold the views they have today if they were around 200 years ago. And it's like a dark truth.
Yeah.
It's to the point of Hitler too. Like, there are things about, like, there's it's like an essay or something on someone who spent time, I'm mixing up the story, but he had dogs that he loved.
Was it Michael Vick?
No, it was Hitler.
Oh, Hitler's dogs.
Yeah. And he was like really, really compassionate and loving to his dogs. And this fucked with whoever wrote it. This fucked with this person's mind, because they're like, oh wait, I thought he was like a monster
In all areas.
and all, like, and so like that's, you know, there are good and bad qualities to every single person, even if they're a monster.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I would think the program kind of teaches us to look at the world like that with some compassion, like cautious compassion. Actually, funny, one of my favorite comedians of all time, Norm Macdonald.
Oh yeah,
rest in peace. He had a stand-up special called Hitler's Dog. Actually, he's got this bit where he's like, I can't recreate a Norm bit, so I won't even try. But yeah, and then I think another one. This isn't someone who I disagree with. It's just so Seth MacFarlane, the guy who created Family Guy and American Dad and Ted and all that stuff. Brilliant comedic mind, in my opinion. Throughout the time of Family Guy, there's been a lot of bits and gags they did where I'm like, oh, that's dumb. I totally disagree with that. And it usually comes from Brian, who's like, he says is like his voice in the show. And there's one bit they did, and they were like bagging on AA. And it wasn't, I don't think it was just a cutaway. I think it was Brian's like consistent opinion on AA, where it's just, AA isn't curing these people. You're just swapping one addiction for another. You're just swapping your alcoholism for going to AA. And I thought about that. I'm like, that's a pretty like elementary view of what happens at the program at 12-step meetings. In my case is always like, you could go to meetings for a whole week and not hear alcohol mentioned one time, because it's more about doing the 12 steps or applying recovery principles to life. And it's not about swapping out one addiction for the next. Like, sure, you could go to meetings and see people chain smoking cigs, ripping coffee, eating all the cakes and donuts possible. Like, sure, but I would argue that it's more about, how can I be of service? How can I, connect with people? That's one thing you mentioned. I didn't even plan on talking about this, but I think when we were talking bullet points, you had brought up connection. And I've heard it described recently that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety or abstinence necessarily. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
And I thought that was...
Do you know where that comes from?
No, I don't.
There was a study they did with rats, and they had one rat on its own in a cage, and in its water was cocaine. And then they have another cage with a community of rats, and in that cage are two waters. One is cocaine lace, and the other is just straight water. I'm sorry, that's in both cages. They have both the cocaine and the regular water is in both cages. One cage has one rat by itself. The other has like 10 or 20 or whatever.
Okay.
The cage that has the single rat in it exclusively drank the cocaine water.
Hell yeah. The
other cage, those rats barely touched the cocaine water at all. Like they would sip it and then they left it. So like as soon as they felt the effects or something, they knew like, no, something about being with other rats led them away from the cocaine laced water.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of like where that concept came out of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I have heard that study now that you mention it. I have another thought on the connection thing, so I don't want to get too off course here.
Yeah,
I'll circle back to the connection thing because I had a thought there.
Okay.
But another way I've heard addiction described by our boy Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
He described it like this, and it's a way I've never heard it put like this. He said, addiction is just a gradual narrowing of things that bring us pleasure. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. When I'm like in active addiction, drugs and alcohol, there's like very few other things that I want to do. But since getting sober, and even when I like reduce my like caffeine and nicotine intake, which I would fully admit that I'm addicted to, there's like more that I want to do. I want to have my hand in like more things. Like I don't want to just like go to work, come home and like mind-numbingly watch TV or scroll. Like I want to like get outside. I want to go on a hike. I want to go for a walk. I want to go visit stores I've never been to. And I think that description of a gradual narrowing of things that bring me pleasure is pretty on the nose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Even post drugs and alcohol, just any vice I pick up follows that, I would say.
Yeah. The connection thing.
Yeah.
When you were in active addiction, did you find that you had a lack of connection with others?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way in recovery as much?
At times, I do. But it depends on. Usually, that's when I'm not working a really good program, or I'm not attempting at connecting with my higher power. Isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with the lack of connection was, even while I was actively drinking and drugging, it wasn't like people were like, "Go away, we don't want you." In fact, it was usually like, let's go do something, or like trying to initiate some sort of connection until I burned a bridge. And so when I get in that headspace, I am actively keeping myself isolated from connection. I'm running away from it. It's not even that it's just not finding me. I'm actively like sprinting in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have.
It's better now.
Yeah.
And it still happens. But when I was using it, it was like the entire using experience was me trying to not go to the party, because people at the party would get in the way of how I wanted to use and yada yada.
Yeah. Our buddy Jason had a fucking bomb that he dropped on me one time. He was like, connection with other human beings isn't a want. It's a need.
It is.
And framed like that, I was like, holy shit. I literally have every work day that I go into that office, I talk about it all the time, and maybe one day it'll fucking sink in. But I have two routes. I walk in the front door. I could go left and go sit by myself, do some work, whatever. Or I could go right and sit with a few people that, I could learn a lot from. They're not always the most pleasant people to be around, but I could go mingle and stay like out of my own head for the day. I always go left. I always choose the quieter side of the building. And I rationale it like, oh, well, I'll get more done this way. And maybe that's true. But I'll tell you what, when I am involved in more meetings and I surround myself with people more often, I walk out of the building feeling 10 times better every single time. And pretty much without exception. Sometimes I will get caught like working on a project with somebody and they'll kind of like hijack the conversation, talk my ear off for like an hour, and I'll just be sitting there like, do you even need me for this conversation right now? Like, you're just talking at me. And that I don't think is quite as productive, but the funny thing is I will typically choose the by myself over connecting with others. And I don't know if that's normal. I don't know if that's an addict thing. I don't know if that's a me thing, being more introverted most of the time, but it's just an observation.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm really introverted. I feel like you're very extroverted. Would you say, even though that you might not want, like, you get energy, you seem to get energy. It doesn't mean like you don't need alone time, but I feel like you light up when you're around people. I'm the opposite. I'm good in this scenario when it's like just you and me, but when there's chatter, I'm like, uh-oh.
What about the millions of viewers at home?
And all of you.
All 12 of them.
That's right.
Yes, I would say there's a caveat to that, though. I am more extroverted in comfortable surroundings. If you surround me with people that I get along really well with, have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Have like really good conversation with. Oh yeah, I'm happy as a clam.
Yeah.
Still need the alone time, but in an environment like my work, like,
it's a little different.
Don't always have a ton to talk about, like outside of work stuff. Like if you get me around a bunch of pro wrestling fans. Fuck yeah. Speaking of, as of this filming, today, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, John Cena versus CM Punk for the last time in Saudi. It's gonna be a banger. Sorry.
I don't know much about wrestling, but I condone anything that makes Chris happy, like wrestling.
Oh man, let's see. What else did I have here? to talk about. We're coming up on 2. That's great. Anything else that you were hoping to talk about today that we didn't get to?
I'm trying to think if we had any like loose ends. We did our pet peeves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We did the Wim Hof. We did connection. Not off the top of my head.
Okay. I may have another peeve here. Let me check.
Oh, actually, I do have something. But if you find the peeve, it was something I wanted to ask you.
Okay. Okay.
It's kind of about pet peeves, but annoyances in general.
Yeah, go for it. I got nothing standing out here.
So one of the things that I thought of this when I was talking about the layering of like there's a thing that bothers me, and then there's me being bothered about being bothered.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I've been going to see a therapist as well, and he introduced me to this therapy model called internal family systems. Have you heard of it?
No.
There's a book called No Bad Parts. I think the author's name is Richard Schwartz.
Okay.
So this book, I've only read a little bit, but it introduced this new idea to me. And so basically, the premise is, at least up front, according to the book, there is the mono-mind paradigm, which is how people, at least in our society, view the mind. So like when you think of you think of Chris, right? And Chris is a dude, and he's like a singular.
Yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole of who am I, but
that's exactly. So it turns out that a lot of friction is developed when we operate under that premise, because we actually are, I think he called it a multiplicity of selves, which instantly when I heard that was like, I don't like how that makes me feel. Something about that's really creepy, because then it makes you. So that's why it's called internal family system, because the point of it is to integrate all these parts into a family and make sure everyone in the family has a good relationship with one another. So it leads to you like asking. So you do like a meditation, and a feeling will arise. And the feeling will be, he calls them all these things parts. There's your true self. The true self is kind of like who you were when you came out of the Wim Hof exercise. It's the calm, compassionate, curious version of you. That's sort of, and he did this with a bunch of patients over like 40 years, a bunch of his patients that he worked with directly. And when he would ask them, you know, what part's talking, yada, yada, if they were scared or whatever, it would be, they would name it. But then when they would refer to themselves, he would be like, what do you mean when you say yourself? And they would describe curious, compassionate, calm. It was like across the board. So there are other feelings that pop up. Maybe it's fear, or maybe you don't even know what it is. You just feel it like in your stomach or your chest or wherever. And when you're kind of living on autopilot, you repress it, or you exile it, and those parts are called exiles. Like, get out of here! I don't deal with you. Like, you're a threat to me. But so the point is to do meditation, and then you spend time with that feeling, and instead of thinking to yourself, what is this thing saying?
Looking at the book.
Okay, you allow it to tell you through meditation, and you feel it. So it's not like, oh, the fear is telling me that I'm upset that whatever, my cousin didn't show up to my birthday party last week. It's not how it will make itself evident, you know. It doesn't have a voice necessarily, but it has an expression.
Add to cart. No bad parts. Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And so anyway, this kind of, I've been doing this for about, I think, 3 weeks. I've been using the IFS model, and it's been really helpful in letting go of some stuff, and also with developing an honest conversation with myself about things, things that might upset me or bother me. So when you had mentioned pet peeves, what was the one that you had mentioned? I can't remember what it was. The one that
The one I
bothered you.
mentioned, the hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, who is that that's upset?
If I'm being truly honest, I think it's the part of me that is constantly filtering life through a comedic lens and looking for ways to twist and bend things to make them funny.
Yeah.
And I think I got that from probably the show Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they take like tiny little situations in life that are very what's the word I'm looking for? You can relate to it. There's a and I have this part that's constantly searching for like little molehills to make mountains out of.
So like kind of like in Seinfeld, he always starts with, "What is it with?"
Yeah,
so you're always looking for the last word in that sentence, kind of. Mm-hmm. What is it with hand sanitizer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the show plays out, and it's like, just I can't even come up with an example right now, but there's thousands of them, and it's kind of wired my brain into putting a lens on throughout the day and being like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, I feel like I go through this so often. I'm sure other people do too. Let's share it and have a laugh about it. Have a yuck about it. Okay. So I think that's where the hand sanitizer thing comes.
Okay. That's really interesting.
But I don't have that with everything. Some things I have different goggles that I feel like I put on. Like, those are like the comedy goggles. Can't keep them on all the time. Wish I could. But sometimes I put on goggles that it's like the poor me goggles. Yeah. Sometimes I put on the insecurity goggles of like, who am I to think that this can be accomplished, or I'll never figure this out, or I'm not good enough.
Is that your least favorite pair of goggles?
That's a big one. Probably yes, because there's very little benefit to it.
Can I ask you a question about that pair of goggles?
Yeah.
It's an IFS question. It was one of the first exercises. What, if you were to listen to that, the insecurity, if you let it talk to you or let it express itself to you, how would it answer this question? What are you afraid of happening if you don't show me these feelings?
I'm afraid of being abandoned by others, and I'm afraid of like not being good enough. And I think I'm basing that off past experience.
Okay.
Probably a big one being how many times I've been like cheated on or like left for another dude.
Okay.
I think it just manifests in like not being good enough.
Oh, so you're afraid of someone leaving if you're that. So it's not even like a reference to you. It's like somebody else abandoning you. It's not like I'm not even living up to my own standards. It's more like I'm not living to someone else's standards, and they're going to leave me if I don't live up to these standards.
Yeah, because I think on one hand, I think it's very important to not seek validation outside of yourself. And I know that as a fact, that all the validation you truly need is inside and with whatever you call the thing that created everything, God, whatever. And I know that, but when I have on my self-pity goggles or my insecurity goggles, that doesn't register. And that part that I need to have all my validation come from me, like that's a good point. Like you talked about integrating these things, that part is definitely not integrated, because it's like, I mean, think of someone with a split personality, having like a totally set of values and morals on one side, totally different on the other side. I wouldn't say it's that extent, but that concept of like internally validating myself doesn't exist.
It literally says that in the book, dude. He
Really?
talks about multiple personality disorder.
Really?
He said it's not different.
Uh-huh.
Well, the only difference is that people with that condition, their parts are more radically fragmented than someone who doesn't have that condition. But everyone has the parts. It's just how damaged they are.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, man. And like I said, I added that book to my shopping cart. I will order it. I think it's going to be of great value. And that's one thing that came up when I was talking with my therapist. And I always joke, I think I'm on therapist number 12 or 13. None of the other ones fixed me like I thought they would. This one, maybe. We went to high school together, apparently. We didn't know each other. But she said the psilocybin therapy is fantastic, but there needs to be like 3 or 4 follow-up sessions where we integrate.
Yeah.
And without doing the therapy, I can't speak on it much because like I was like, okay, I'm sure that'll make sense after, but like, what does that mean to integrate? So I'm sure this book will talk about that a lot because you should.
Yeah, I think I haven't gotten to the part where it's just the preliminary exercises. But yeah, the point is to integrate all of that, to have it be one unit.
Yeah.
Instead of a bunch of different people screaming at each other inside your head, which is what I experienced.
Yeah. You know what's one thing that I've done to combat that actually does work? It's just really hard for me to remain in the state, is all of the Eckhart Tolle power of now stuff. Like when I'm actively listening to Eckhart Tolle, he has a very unique way of guiding me into the present moment. And when I'm in the present moment, my mind is so quiet that I'm not hearing it. Like it's just pure consciousness. Happens very rarely, but it's like pure consciousness. It's almost like how we felt after we got done with the Wim Hof guided breathing, where I'm just like aware of every movement I'm making. I'm aware of my breath on a constant basis. I'm aware of like all the shapes and colors around me. I'm aware of the items in the room. Hell, I'm aware of the space in the room that gives an opportunity for all the items to exist. And that's kind of a good analogy for like what's happening in my brain. Like when I focus on just the objects, those are the thoughts. The table, the can, the microphone, the desk, the lamp, whatever. But the present moment, when I'm truly in it, I'm only focused on the space, the empty space that allows for everything. And when I'm in that, then there's like, I don't know if it's all the parts integrated or none of the parts existing. I just have access to them, but it's like this pure, calm, blissful state that I wish I could.
I want to read something to you.
Yeah.
That because it's I think a writing of Confucius, or maybe it's Lao Tzu.
Ooh, and just talking about it, I'm like, hell yeah.
Oh, the Tao Te Ching. Do you know what that is? I think that's like the text for Taoism.
Okay. Now, is Taoism the same as Buddhism, or just like
different.
A branch of, or not even?
I think it's like a branch. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sort of like how Christianity and Judaism are different.
Oh yeah.
Probably misrepresenting, but they are different
For sure.
And it was just like a little quote from that text that talks about, I think, what you were just describing. Though 30 spokes may form the wheel, it is the hole within the hub which gives the wheel utility. It is not the clay the potter throws which gives the pot its usefulness, but the space within the shape from which the pot is made. Without a door, the room cannot be entered, and without its windows, it is dark. Such is the utility of non-existence.
Wow. I might cut the podcast right there. That is a tremendous note to go out on. But I got nothing else. I got a pretty empty brain right now. It's a good place to be. You got anything?
I think
cool.
It's good.
Sweet. Well, fist bump. Good shit. Good to have you on, man.
Good to be here.
Bye, everybody.